We have to talk about target focus for a second. Now, I put down these black aiming references. That is a representation of what you want for target focus, which is you drive your attention to a small spot. You look small on the target. Like the way USPSA targets are designed, you don't really have anything to look at. If you can see like an off-color paster, a shadow, anything you can grab, you want to drive your eye to a small spot, right? Like aim small, miss small. You guys have seen The Patriot, right? Mel Gibson. He was, I wouldn't say he's right about everything, but he was right about that. He said some other controversial shit about the Jews later I don't really agree with, but it was funny. Anyway, we want to stare at this small spot with hatred in your heart is a good way. Like you have the intent that you actually drive bullets to this spot. Now, is that possible? Is it possible? I'm going plop, plop, plop. They're all going to go on that spot? No, that's not really going to happen. But you have that intent, like truly, like you're trying to drive bullets right on that spot, truly. Now, we put these down. This is a good training tool to help you understand focusing on the target. And you'll see like, whoa, that actually helps me. And we should also talk about the difference between focus and awareness. So the people get tripped up with this with iron sights a lot. If he's like, hey, shoot target focus, they're going to be like, so I don't use my sights? Like, what do you mean? Because they have a hard time like seeing the difference between focus and awareness. Like with iron sights, I'd say that you're shooting blurry blocks, right? The sights are just always blurry. I'm aware of them. I'm using them. I'm just not staring at them. Like I'm just going to let them be blurry. And that's kind of the thing. It's like I'm focused on this spot, but I'm aware of what my sight is doing. I'm aware of what the dot is doing relative to that spot. Now, you guys, have you heard about the Scottsdale lady? The example? Seeing blank look. Sorry, I'll explain it. All right. You guys are married, I hope. You look pretty functional. This is why you're not married. Well, I'm not married either. But all right. So let's say you're sitting across from your girlfriend at a booth, right? That's your focus. Yes? Now, over in the background, you've got one of these like Scottsdale chicks or like, what is it down here? Real Housewives of, where would it be? Like Miami? You know? Oh, yeah. Dave's saying, yeah, like Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. So let's say these chicks have the big fake hoodies and like all the upgrades. Like it's one of those chicks is in the background. Are you aware she's there? Yes. Is that your focus? No. If you look over there, there's negative consequences are going to happen. Right. And it's similar when you're using your sight on the target. It's like, I'm not focused on the sight. The sight is very apparently doing a lot of things, but I'm focused on where I want the sight to go. I'm focused on that black paster. And when you're actually shooting, it's harder than a Fort Lauderdale housewife in the background. It's like, imagine the Fort Lauderdale chick is dancing on the table in front of you. Because that's what it is, right? Your sight is dancing around here, and I'm not looking at it. I'm looking through it at where I want it to go, right? Focus versus awareness. So you'll be aware of the sight doing a lot of shit. But if you start looking at it, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I'll push it back down. Like, that's not good. That's not what we want. Does that make sense to everybody? All right, I'm going to make an example for you. I'll make two. Now, I want you to watch how much the gun... Oh, shit, I got to put my gun back together. Oh, I know, I forgot to talk about this. Occlusion. How many of you have done this? All right, we'll get the occlusion on your guns if you need them. I like occluding, especially on drills like this, just because it lets me know. Like, as I look at a spot, like one eye can see the target, the other can't. My brain builds a picture that I want, which will be the target looks clear and the dot is superimposed over it. If I look at the dot with my dominant eye, it just shuts down my view of the target and it indicates to me that I'm doing something wrong. We'll get the occlusion going. That's a great training tool. I like to turn my dot up and down in terms of the brightness as well. How is that helpful?
So you don't focus on the dot.
What's that? So you don't focus on the dot, and it helps you understand when you are going to focus on the dot. If the dot is if it's too dim, it'll come up and you're like, you don't even see it, right? You can't really perceive it, and then it pulls your focus onto it. If it's too bright, you can't like look past it, you know? And you want it to be right in the middle, but for training purposes, it's helpful to like move it around so you really understand what you're doing. The cure for not focusing on the target is being aware for when you're not. That's really the only thing that's going to work. Is you'll start to notice when you do it, when you focus on the dot, and then over time, you'll quit doing it. All right, I'll make an example here. I want you to watch how much the gun appears to recoil. All right, you saw the difference between the first and the second example. Like the first example is not what I want. You saw my whole posture change. I'm leaning into the gun. I rolled my elbows out. I pushed on the gun a lot and I tensed up my body. Did that really help with the recoil? No, it didn't really help. And that's why I'm like, don't do that shit. Just hold the guns like we talked about with your hands. Let the gun recoil. It's going to recoil. And look at where you want it to go. The second example is what I wanted. I just held the gun with my hands and my forearms. And that was it. Like there was no other tension in my body. Now you probably saw the gun bounced a little more, but it always came back to where I was looking. So we're emphasizing consistent and predictable. Make sense? All right. We're going to do, before we go back to shooting pairs, we'll do one other little exercise here. And that'll be, I'll aim in at this black spot. At the tone, I'm going to shoot a shot. And then just, the exercise is just returning the gun to the spot I want to. Watch the gun closely. I'll make a few examples for you. All right, so you saw that 3 different versions of that. The first one was what I would judge as correct. All I did was like stare at the black spot with hatred. The gun came right back. After that, I was like, oh, I'll try to stop the dot from rising. So I'll just push on it as soon as the shot goes off. And then I saw the dot go down and come back up. Should you see the red dot go below that black point? No, like if it does, you did that. That was you pushing on the gun. The third example was where I stared at the dot and let the gun go up a lot, and then I returned it very slowly. You'll see guys do that. If they recognize they're pushing down on the gun, then they'll be like, oh, well, I'll just won't do that. And then they do everything in slow motion and put the gun right back in the center. Like we'd assess, I'd be like, hey, that's not realistic, right? That's not shooting fast enough. So we'd have to do the first thing. Look at the spot, beep, boom, gun goes off. It's right back to where I'm looking. How much force does it take to make Glock go from here to here? Not much, right? So if you feel like you're fighting with the gun to make it do something, that's going to be too much. That's overkill. Make sense to everybody? All right, so we'll do this little one-shot exercise just so you'll get it like, yep, I get what he's talking about. And then we'll do doubles again. All right, let's back up to this line. Okay, let's get